welcome to our lesson. We are talking about the life cycles of plants and animals today in our small group. Okay, so in front of you, you have two stacks. One that looks like a plant, and one that looks like an animal or a frog. And what I want you to do first is on the side of your desk, one on one side, one on the other. I want you to undo your paper clip and put these in the correct order. So for instance, kind of make it look like a circle. So you start at the top with what would come first, and then around for what would come next. And let's see how you do before we even start our lesson. Alfredo, I love how you set everything out first and got it in the order you wanted. Is there anything you want to do over here? There you go. Great job. Wow, that's so beautiful. Hey, you're done so quick. You too, Tessa. Good job. So how did you start your say?
I started with the seed, and then I went to what would a seed go into to a seedling, and I thought what would a seedling go into, and turn into a sprout, and then I thought what a sprout would turn into, and then turn into a dog seed.
Ooh, you're so brilliant. Okay, Tessa, how about for the frog? Ooh, so awesome. Okay, so we are going to actually talk about some vocab words today and read a passage about the life cycle of plants and animals. We're not reading all of it, we're only reading the two parts that matter to us. Okay, so the title of this is The Life Cycles of Plants and Animals. And if you look at your passage, you'll see that I underlined some words in that section. And then in the plants and animals section, in the plant section, and if you turn it to the back into the animal life cycle section, I underlined some of the words in each section. Those are the vocabulary words that we will need to know before we can go on to another lesson. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and write those on our chart so that we know what they are so we can find them as we go through the lesson. So what's the first word that I have underlined? Katie?
Life cycle.
Life cycle. What's the next word? Wilfredo?
Seeds.
Seeds. How about the next one?
Undeveloped.
Undeveloped. Okay?
Embryo.
Tessa? Try that one again. Germinates, right? And what's next? Complex. Next one, Lila.
Dormant.
Dormant. Wilfredo? Seedling. Any more on the front? Okay, turn it over. Ooh, there's a big one. What is it? Metamorphosis. I'm going to have to give myself some more room for that one. Are these words that you think we've seen before?
Yes.
Yeah, we've seen all these words before, but they're words that in the passage, they tell us exactly what the rest of the passage means. We have to know them to be able to understand what we're reading. So when we understand what we're reading, what do we remember that that's called? Remember, starts with C? When we're reading something and we understand what we're reading? Ooh, we're using our context clues clues to understand, but we're comprehending or using comprehension to figure out what we're doing. Very good. We're using vocab and comprehension to figure out the differences and the similarities in the life cycles, okay? Our whole goal today is so that we can compare the two and then write a paragraph about what we need to know about plant life cycles and animal life cycles and how they're alike and different. Okay, I'm going to read the first paragraph that tells us just what life cycles is about, okay? What is a life cycle? Every living thing has a life cycle, or a series of changes that occur during its life. One of the words in my sentence was underlined. It was what?
Life cycle.
Life cycle. Can I use the context clues there to figure out what that word means?
Yes, ma'am.
What word gives us that clue? What?
Or a series of changes that occur during its life.
Very good. Or a series of changes that occur during its life. Underline that. That tells me what that word means. That word "or" there signals that it's going to tell us something else that means the same thing. Okay? An organism's life cycle begins when it's born, hatches, or germinates. Ooh, those are some good words. The organism grows and reaches adulthood or maturity. Eventually, all organisms die. The life cycle will continue, though, as long as the adults reproduce and their young survive. Okay? So this whole passage is about this one paragraph, life cycles. So we just learned that life cycles are a series of changes that occur during life. So we already know that with basic animals, right? We start with an egg, and then we go to a embryo, and then a infant, and then an adolescent, and then an adult. Okay. So I have 5 paragraphs here for plant life cycle. After each one, we're going to stop and talk about the vocab words in it. But I want you to read it. Each of you are going to take a turn reading each one. And then we will talk about the vocab words when we're done. Okay? This is now plant life cycles. Can you read the first one, Kate?
Yes, ma'am. Plants can be classified into two groups. Those that produce seeds and those that do not. Most plants produce seeds. Seeds are the structures containing a tiny, undeveloped plant called an embryo that has started to grow inside. The hard outer covering of the seed, called the seed coat, protects the embryo. Seeds also have stored food for the embryo to use when the seed germinates or begins to grow.
Ooh, you did so awesome. So this one has the most underlined words because it's the first one in this section, okay, about plants. So what was the first word that was underlined for us? What is it, Tessa? Seeds. What is a seed? What does it tell us? Very good. Seeds is a structure that contains a tiny, underdeveloped plant. Underdeveloped is a word that I have underlined. It doesn't really tell us using all of the context clues here, but I can think of one word that describes it. What is that one word? Ooh, I'm trying to figure out what undeveloped means. What's the one word right before it? Right before tiny. So it's tiny. And what does un mean? Not. Very good. We're using those prefixes. Not developed. Does anybody remember what developed means? What? Like fully grown or complete, right? So it's not complete. It's tiny and undeveloped, not developed yet. Plant called an embryo. Ooh, we just said that was the same as animals. So now we have something that I'm already seeing that's similar, right? They both have an embryo. They start at the same phase. What is an embryo? What is it? That's where they start to grow inside. Very good. means what?
Begin to grow.
To begin to grow. Very good. So the next two paragraphs are about mosses and ferns. That's not really what we're talking about today, but it's within our paragraph, so we are going to read them. We just aren't going to discuss much in them. We are working on the plant life cycle of flowering plants. Okay? So Tessa, go ahead and read your paragraph.
Mosses and birds do not produce seeds. They produce spores. Like a seed, a spore will grow to a plant. However, spores do not have an embryo inside. They do not contain what spores do.
Very good. So it told us that mosses and ferns do not produce seeds. And the embryo inside does not contain stored food, which we know happens in a seed. So next one, talk about ferns for us.
The fern life cycle is very complex. Spores develop on the underside of an adult fern's leaves. When the spore is released and lands on moist soil, it grows into a small heart-shaped form from which an adult fern develops.
I have something underlined in that paragraph. What is it?
Complex.
Complex. What does complex mean? I like it when you make a guess. What do you think? A lot? Hey, maybe it has a lot of something. What else?
Like hard to understand.
Oh, that's so perfect. Complex is like hard to understand, or many parts, something that if you're building like a Lego set and it has a lot of pieces, that's a complex Lego set.
So
It's difficult, okay? Difficult to understand, has a lot of pieces, something like that, okay? Now we're getting into the meat and potatoes, what we're really learning about. Flowering plants. Lila, can you read me paragraph 4?
flowering plants start life as a seed. Inside the seed, the embryo is dormant. It uses very little energy, and it is not growing. When the temperature and moisture are right, the seed germinates. A small root and stem start to grow. A small plant that has just started to grow is called a seedling. The plant continues to grow, more roots, stems, and leaves. This is called the vegetative stage.
Very good, vegetative stage. Okay, 2 words in there underlined, 2 vocabulary words. What's the first one? Dormant. What does dormant mean? It doesn't mean inside the seed. It means it's not growing, it's staying the same, right? It's not changing at all.
It's like a poultry dormant.
You're so brilliant, yes. Like during the winter, the leaves fall off the tree and it's dormant. Exactly what it means. And the next word is what, Katie?
Seedling.
Seedling. Seedling. What does seedling mean?
Just started to grow.
A small plant that just started to grow. Very good. Underline that. You guys are doing so great with your underlining. Okay. Last paragraph. You ready? Go ahead. Very good. So this goes over the rest of the life cycle, right? So then it becomes a mature plant, and at this time it can start producing pollen, and then it can then start developing new plants. That's how the whole process works. Okay? So if we look back at our lovely little cards, you guys all had it correct. We start with a what? A seed. And then what happens? What's happening inside that seed?
A little
Okay. And what is in there? A seedling, and it's going to grow. And does it need anything else besides just the seed? Water and sun. Because what does it have in there? It has its own what? Food. Very good. And after it becomes a seed, what happens next? It germinates, and what happens? Well, it sprouts, and then it becomes a seedling, and then it keeps growing, growing, growing till it is an adult. Very good. Okay, flip over your paper. Okay, animal life cycle. Now there's only 4 paragraphs here, so someone's not going to get a chance to read. Okay, very good. Can you start for me, Tay?
There are many variations in animals' life cycles. Some young look very similar to the adult they will become. Other young do not look like the adult of their species. They change drastically as they grow and develop.
Very good. There's no vocab words now, so we're going to the next one.
When animals grow and change in body plan and of its life cycle is called metamorphosis. During metamorphosis, new body parts form. This change occurs in the development. Often the young
Very good. There is a word underlined, and you're in this perfect spot since you're not going to read. What is that word?
Metamorphosis.
And what does metamorphosis mean?
It changes.
It means?
It gets bigger and bigger. Body form is a part of its life cycle.
Oh, yes, I mean, that is what happens. Metamorphosis is where the change occurs, right? Very good. Metamorphosis, the word actually means, do you remember?
Changes.
Changes. Very good. Okay, so now we're getting into what we really want to talk about today. Frogs. Go ahead, Lala.
Frogs start their lives in eggs. In the egg, a tadpole develops. When it hatches, it has a mouth, gills, and a tail. The tadpole sticks to the underside of a plant until it has grown more of a body, and then begins to swim like a fish.
Ooh. So it starts as an egg, and then when it hatches, it kind of has the same stuff as a fish, right? Mouths, gills, and tails. And then the tadpole sticks to the underside of the plant, and then starts developing more of its body. What happens next, Wilfredo? Very good. So read metamorphosis for me.
Metamorphosis begins after about 6 weeks. When the eggs start to form, tiny arms and it will start to walk over the one side of the strong foot to the top of the zone into the body. Tadpole is known as tadpole. Adult frogs have long must be there and the one end of the skin, but their skin must stay moist.
Very good. Okay, so metamorphosis begins when?
About 6 weeks.
About 6 weeks. And what happens in the first stage of metamorphosis? What happens, Katie?
It turns into tadpole.
Okay, well, it starts off as a tadpole. Remember the egg to the tadpole. So what?
It grows.
So what happens?
Tiny legs start to grow.
Very good. So then it's a tadpole with legs. And then what happens next, Tessa?
It grows tiny arms.
It grows tiny arms. And then what happens?
And then it grows lungs.
It grows lungs.
Water.
And then it can breathe where?
On land.
On land. Very good. So we learned exactly what happens with a frog. So let's look at our cards again. So what does it start with? What is it?
Eggs.
Very good. An egg. And then what happens next?
A tadpole.
A tadpole. And then?
A tadpole with legs.
And then?
Frog. Another frog.
And then
Adult frog.
adult. Very good. A froglet and then an adult frog. If you look at that picture of that froglet, what does it look like?
A fat one.
It looks like what?
Fat biscuit.
Kind of looks like a bad biscuit. It looks like a chunky frog without all the hoppy parts, right?
Yeah.
That's kind of a funny picture.
Yeah.
Okay, so what our goal is we are going to use some of our vocabulary words and compare the life cycles of the plants and the animals to see the similarities and differences. Okay, so there's going to be a couple parts. I'm going to make sure all my stuff is in order so that I can use this as my visual, right? So all my stuff is here. I'm going to give you this. Does anybody remember what this paper is called?
Graphic organizer.
Oh, it's a graphic organizer, but it's a special kind of graphic organizer. Do you know what kind? Starts with a V.
Vocabulary graphic.
A Venn diagram.
Yeah, that.
This is my favorite kind of graphic organizer. Oh, baby. Ooh, you lost a plant. There you go. Okay. So what we are going to do is I'm going to actually make one of these up here too. So remember, not an artist. This is an art class.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, this is just Miss Peach's class.
So we have 2 circles.
We don't judge.
And not anymore. Okay, so on the left-hand side up top, what are we going to label this one? What did we talk about first?
Plants.
Plants. So let's label that one plants. You do the same thing as me as we do it. And then on the other side, what are we going to label it? Frogs. And then that middle part where it overlaps,
Both. It means how they're same.
both or the same. Very good. We'll put the word both because it's easier to write there. So we have plants, frogs, and both. What do we think? What's something that both of them have? Let's start with that.
Life cycle.
Okay, so they both have a life cycle. We can put that. That's like what we're talking about, so we can put life cycle. I'm thinking of something a little bit different that we talked about in both. What do you think?
They both have an egg.
They have an egg or an embryo, right?
Mhm.
Very good. An egg. Very good. That's a very important part. We talked about this before. All plants, animals, insects, they all kind of started the same thing at that seed or egg stage, right?
Mhm.
What else? You have any more similarities?
They both have an adult stage.
They both have an adult stage. Anybody else want to help out? Tay's doing so awesome, but we can talk about their differences. If you have something that you want to add to that, what do you think, Tessa?
The tadpole, it goes to tadpole and that goes to seedling.
Okay, so they have different steps in their life cycles, right? So the first step for the plant is what?
Seed.
Is a seed. And then what does it change to after the seed?
A seedling.
So it goes into a seedling. And you mentioned the frog. What did you mention for the frog, Tessa? It changed to a tadpole. Ooh, I just thought of a similarity. How about, what do they both need to live? What do we know about them? What do they both need?
Water.
They both need water. What else?
Sun.
Sun
Air. Air, yeah. Oxygen.
and air. Those are some big similarities, right? How about something else about plants? What do you think, Tess?
It germinates.
It germinates And I just loved what you said. What do?
They make food.
They make their own food, right? Do you remember what that's called?
Photosynthesis.
Photosynthesis. Very good.
As you said, I remembered it.
They make. Can a frog make its own food? No, it has to eat other things. It has to either eat plants. Ooh. We can put that up there. It either needs to eat plants or like small bugs, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it can't make its food.
Insects.
So can't make food. What else? We want to make sure that we have all our details so that we can make a really good paragraph comparing the two. What else? It what?
It absorbs its tail.
Ooh, it absorbs its own body. What do you think, Kaden?
Frogs grow lungs.
Oh, they grow lungs. What do they have when they're born?
Gills.
They have gills.
Oh.
What else?
A plant would need pollen.
Very good. The plant needs. What does it need pollen?
To reproduce.
Do we know what animals need to reproduce? A mate, right? Very good. Maybe one more of each, and then we can start on our paragraph. What do you think? That's okay. Oh, if I think back through, if I want to think about our vocab words for a second,
Oh,
let's think about it.
I'm trying to think about
What do you think?
that. Frogs have no plants. No, I'm
That's all right. What do you think?
They both go through metamorphosis.
They both go through changes. They both go through some metamorphosis. Not the same metamorphosis, but some. What else?
The frog has 5 stages and the plant has 4 stages.
Plant 4 stages. And the frog 5 stages. Okay. So now we got to come up with a good topic sentence for our paragraph.
Alike or different?
Okay. What do you think?
Comparing plants and rocks in its life cycle.
Okay, so we're probably going to want to use the word life cycle. What else?
Comparing the difference and similarities to the frog and plant life cycle.
Okay, what do you think?
These are the plants and frogs' life cycle.
How about this? Plants and animals.
You put animals.
That's okay. Have many similarities and differences, right? Ooh, we can use the word animals here, or we can use frogs, whichever one you prefer. But your goal is you were going to write a paragraph and you were going to tell me some of the things. We could probably write a whole essay on that, but we don't have time, okay? Because there's a lot of facts. But we could use probably 2 sentences for each thing, so 6 good sentences, plus our beginning and our end. So that would be a total of 8 good sentences on plants, animals, and how they are alike and different, okay? We'll give you a piece of paper. You want to make sure that you're using information from your text, from our graphic organizer, and your cards. We have plenty of information here to get started. Probably want to start with our same topic sentence.